Imagine showing up to your very first day at this prestigious Washington, D.C. law firm. You are wearing a pristine new suit, you're holding a completely empty briefcase, and you sit at your new desk just waiting for a senior partner to, walk by and hand you your first assignment.
Right. You're just expecting them to show you the ropes.
Exactly. You are ready to be nurtured. You are ready for the company to take the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And then a curt senior partner walks in, looks at your empty desk, and just bluntly tells you that nobody is going to hand you anything.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You are going to have to prove your worth, recruit your own clients, and generate your own revenue before anyone trusts you with their actual work.
That's just a terrifying wake-up call. The realization hits you in a cold sweat, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't view you as an employee to be taken care of. They view you as a mini enterprise. You are entirely on your own.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We're tearing down the illusion of the traditional corporate ladder today, because whether you are hustling as a freelancer or trying to survive the labyrinth of a massive global corporation, nobody is coming to perfectly architect your professional trajectory for you.
They're just not. It doesn't work that way anymore.
It really doesn't. So today we are pulling from a fascinating stack of excerpts from executive coach Beverly E. Jones's book, Think Like an Entrepreneur, Act Like a CEO. And our mission is to shortcut you directly to a Me, Inc. mindset. We want to extract the absolute best tactics to make you adaptable, resilient, and virtually immune to the chaos of the modern workplace.
Which, that requires a fundamental shift in how you operate on a biological and psychological level. We aren't just going to give you superficial career advice today. We are really looking at the mechanics of human behavior.
And by the time we finish this deep dive, you will have some incredibly surprising, highly practical tools in your arsenal. We are going to explore how your entire professional life can be altered by a yellow lab named Daisy, 3 random coins in your pocket, and quite literally, a single grain of sugar.
I love the sugar grain concept, but, to survive this landscape, the foundational step is abandoning the mindset of a passive employee. You have to start operating as a business of one. And that story about the law firm.
Yeah.
That actually happened to our author.
Wait, really? That was a true story?
Completely true. It happened to Beverly Jones. And it completely shattered her expectation that an employer is a caretaker.
Wow. Well, Carrie Hannon wrote the foreword to this book, and she offers a piece of advice that frames this perfectly. She says, you have to view your primary employer as your client.
Yes. And think about the psychological shift that creates, If you are an employee, your default state is dependency. You sit and wait for instructions.
Right.
But if you are a business serving a client, your brain switches to a proactive state. You are constantly anticipating their needs, analyzing how to deliver better service, and crucially, you remain aware that you are an independent entity. You could theoretically take your valuable services to another client.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because whenever I hear the phrase business of one, it inevitably leads to the concept of personal branding.
Yes.
The buzzword.
Yeah, the buzzword. And I have to be honest, the term personal branding immediately makes me cringe. It just sounds gross. Isn't personal branding just a manipulative way of being fake? Like you're putting on a corporate costume to trick people into liking you.
What's fascinating here is that we often confuse branding with fabrication. True branding isn't about inventing a fake persona at all. It is about alignment. It is reducing the cognitive load on your colleagues.
Cognitive load? Wait, how does what I wear or how I talk affect someone else's brain processing? Well, it's about friction. If your brilliance is hidden behind distracting behavior, you are forcing people to work way too hard to see your value. The source text gives a great example of a project manager named Sally.
Okay. What happened with Sally?
So Sally is brilliant and incredibly tech-savvy, but she keeps getting passed over for leadership roles. And why? Because Sally is a massive fan of sci-fi and fantasy conventions.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah, she let those fictional characters heavily influence her office wardrobe. She would also corner her colleagues to, overshare about her weekend hobbies.
But so she was just being herself, right? Why should she have to hide her hobbies?
Because she had inadvertently branded herself as eccentric and distracted. People liked her, sure, but her external presentation was actively masking her internal competence. When leadership looked at her, their brains had to process the distracting outfits before they could think about her technical skills. That's cognitive friction.
That makes sense. So what did she do?
Sally executed a strategic rebranding. She started dressing for the executive role she wanted, pulled her hair back neatly, and consciously dialed back the weekend oversharing. She wrote a specific brand statement, deciding she wanted to be known purely as an indispensable technical expert. She took online courses, published a how-to guide for her colleagues, and effectively removed the friction. People stopped seeing the sci-fi fan and started seeing the leader.
So it's not about being fake. It's about broadcasting the right signal so people don't misinterpret the noise.
Exactly.
The text mentions another leader, Bill, who took this to an entirely different level. And Bill didn't invent a fake persona either. He picked 5 core leadership traits he genuinely wanted to embody, like perseverance, which he symbolized as a mountain.
Yeah, he actually drew those traits as icons. And to ensure he never lost sight of that internal alignment, he had a jeweler turn those 5 icons into a charm bracelet for his wife.
That is intense.
It is. But every time he looked at her wrist, he had a visual anchor reminding him of the standard he set for himself. That is deep intentionality.
But here's the trap, right? You can curate the most intentional, professional, external brand in the world, but if your internal operations are a total disaster, none of it matters.
Oh, absolutely. Your competence is essentially trapped.
Right. Before you can lead a team or manage a project, you have to manage the chaos inside your own head.
The internal game is where the actual battle is fought.
Yeah. The author describes her time in law school, where she was plagued by this exhausting, repetitive inner monologue, constantly chanting, you're gonna flunk. You're gonna flunk.
Oh, man.
Yeah, no matter how hard she studied or how prepared she was, that voice was screaming at her.
And we all have a version of that voice. But what evolutionary biology tells us is that this voice isn't telling you the truth. It isn't an accurate assessment of your intelligence or your worth. It's just a primitive survival mechanism.
A survival mechanism, like from caveman times.
Exactly. Our ancestors survived by constantly scanning the horizon for the absolute worst-case scenario. That evolutionary trait kept us from getting eaten by predators. But today, because there are no tigers in the office, that same biological alarm system manifests as a nagging voice telling you that your presentation is going to bomb and you'll be fired.
Wow. So the sources reference a concept from Rick Carson here. He suggests literally giving that negative voice a name, or picturing it as a nasty little gremlin sitting on your shoulder. But why does giving it a goofy name actually work?
Because of cognitive distancing. The second you name it, you are no longer the emotion. You are the observer of the emotion. You can say, oh, that's just my Monday morning gremlin acting up, and consciously reframe the thought. You shift from being a victim of your amygdala to being the manager of your prefrontal cortex.
So what does this all mean for your daily routine? It sounds like treating your brain like a smartphone.
How do you mean?
Well, when your phone is running sluggish, the battery is dying, and you realize you have 30 apps running silently in the background. You have to force quit those apps. That worrying gremlin, the constant daily micro decisions about whether to work or procrastinate, they are draining your battery.
Right.
You have to force quit them so you have the processing power to do actual meaningful work.
I love that analogy. And force quitting those apps requires a muscle that people deeply misunderstand, which is self-discipline.
Oh, yeah. Look at Doug, the consultant from the book. Doug was charismatic, a great ideas guy, bringing in clients, but internally, his systems were a disaster.
Complete chaos.
Yeah, he dropped the ball on follow-ups and created total chaos for his team. And his defense was, I just wasn't born with self-discipline. I'm a spontaneous guy.
He was treating discipline like eye color, something you either have or you don't. But neuroplasticity proves discipline is a muscle. You build it through progressive resistance.
Like going to the gym.
Exactly. You build it by making small, uncomfortable choices over and over until neural pathways form. You have to visualize exactly what discipline looks like in a given scenario. If being disciplined means getting to work early, you visualize turning off the television at 10 p.m.
And the text points out that you can't just rely on sheer willpower, because willpower is finite. It depletes throughout the day. So you have to engineer your environment.
Right. You literally take the TV remote and hide it in another room.
Yeah. You remove the temptation so your brain doesn't have to burn precious battery life fighting it.
You are designing an environment where the disciplined choice becomes the path of least resistance.
But let's say you do the work. Your internal systems are running smoothly. Your gremlin is locked in a box. Your battery is fully charged. How does this making CEO actually walk into a room? Because if you shuffle into a boardroom staring at your shoes, all that internal brilliance goes completely unnoticed.
This brings us to executive presence. People talk about the it factor like it's magic, but it is highly observable and entirely hackable.
Take Ed and Lydia from the source material. Ed was a brilliant corporate lawyer, technically flawless.
Yeah.
But he never got promoted because he mumbled, kept his head down, and literally shuffled down the office hallways. He lacked gravitas. Lydia was a similarly brilliant economist, but she was plagued by anxiety.
And her anxiety manifested physically, right? She hunched her shoulders, crossed her arms tightly, and looked incredibly small in meetings.
Yeah, but Lydia realized she could hack her own presence. She utilized research from people like Amy Cuddy, adopting power poses. She would stand in private with her arms raised in a wide V shape before important meetings. She even took up yoga to actively release the tension trapped in her muscles.
And that works.
But how does standing in a V shape change how people perceive your economics report?
Because it changes your internal chemistry first. Expanding your physical footprint lowers cortisol, which is the stress hormone, and increases testosterone, which boosts confidence. Lydia literally changed her physical posture, which changed her brain chemistry, which completely altered the nonverbal signals she was broadcasting to her colleagues.
Sister Libby Vick, a communications expert mentioned in the sources, teaches that nonverbal messages will almost always override the words coming out of your mouth.
Always.
Dressing impeccably and standing tall isn't about vanity. It is audience-centered communication. You are making it easy for the audience's brain to trust you.
And once you establish that baseline of trust, the next step is connection, which brings us to the author's yellow lab, Daisy.
Oh, Daisy. Daisy is the ultimate masterclass in networking. The author describes how, when Daisy makes eye contact, she drops her jaw into this massive, wriggling, full-body smile. And it is physically impossible not to smile back at this dog.
It really is.
It's a biological reaction.
Because of mirror neurons. We are hardwired as a species to mirror the emotional states of those around us. A genuine smile triggers a viral physical reaction in the receiver's nervous system. It releases endorphins, lowers blood pressure, and builds instant rapport. If you bring authentic, positive energy into a room, it is quite literally contagious.
Which transitions perfectly into the active practice of giving positive feedback. The story of Josh blew my mind.
Oh, Josh is a great example.
Right. Josh was the general counsel of a federal agency, and his team had abysmal morale. A coach suggested he needed to thank his team more often. And Josh scoffed at this. He said, they're grown-up lawyers. I pay them. That's their thanks. I only talk to them when they screw up.
That management style completely ignores human neurobiology. The brain requires positive reinforcement to sustain high performance.
So the coach gives Josh an assignment. Every morning, Josh has to put 3 random coins in his right pocket. Every time he genuinely thanks someone or praises their work, he moves 1 coin to his left pocket. The rule is he cannot leave the office until all 3 coins have moved.
And at first, it feels incredibly awkward and forced.
Yeah, I bet.
But within a few weeks, Josh doesn't need the coins anymore. He has hacked his own dopamine loop. Giving praise triggers a reward response in the receiver's brain, but it also triggers a massive dopamine release in the giver's brain. Josh became biologically addicted to the positive culture he was creating.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. I can hear listeners pushing back on this right now. They are picturing Eddie Haskell from Leave It to Beaver.
Oh, the classic suck-up.
Exactly. That oily, two-faced character who constantly butters up the adult. Nobody wants to be the office sycophant. So how do you give praise to a boss or ask for mentorship without looking like a total brown-noser to your peers?
This raises an important question because the fear of looking like a suck-up sabotages so many talented careers. Consider Trish from the source material.
Okay, what's Trish's story?
Trish desperately wanted to transfer to a dream job, but the gatekeeper was a senior colleague named Al. And Al had a reputation for being arrogant and loving the spotlight. Trish actively avoided him because she refused to be a sycophant. Her pride was literally stalling her career.
So how did she get past him without selling out?
Her coach challenged her to find anything where Al's expertise was genuinely valuable and approach him authentically. When Trish finally went to Al and asked for his specific guidance on a complex project, he didn't treat her like a minion. He responded warmly and became her strongest champion.
Wow.
Yeah. People ache to be acknowledged. Creating an environment that is 80% positive isn't sucking up. It is the biological requirement for a productive team. If your praise is highly specific and undeniably sincere, people won't think you're a brown-noser. They'll just recognize you as a leader.
So we've built the mindset. We've tamed the internal gremlin. We've fixed the physical posture, and we're triggering dopamine loops with genuine praise. But life still happens. What do you do when you hit a concrete wall? When office politics becomes so toxic you can't sleep, or you realize you need a massive, sweeping career change, but the sheer scale of the shift completely paralyzes you.
You do not take a giant leap. You shrink the problem and you deploy the strategy of play.
Okay, let's talk about the toxic politics first. There's a story about George. George managed a highly successful team, but his success put a massive target on his back. Rival managers started trying to poach his best people and steal his departmental budget. George was exhausted, stressed to the breaking point by the daily attacks.
Because George's amygdala, the brain's threat center, was treating these office politics as physical attacks on his survival. He was drowning in cortisol.
But George loved intense, competitive board games, and he realized he could completely reframe his reality. He decided to look at the office dynamics as a strategic game. His rival managers weren't evil enemies trying to destroy his life. They were just other players on a board, making logical moves to secure their own resources.
Right. And by doing that, George shifted the processing of the conflict out of the emotional amygdala and into the logical prefrontal cortex.
That is so smart.
It is. Once he viewed it as a game with rules, he detached emotionally. It wasn't a personal attack. It was just a chess move. He could counterattack and play to win without letting it destroy his mental health.
But what if it's not just politics? What if you need to entirely rebuild your career? This brings us to my absolute favorite concept in the sources, the sugar grain process.
Oh, this is the best part.
The origin story is so mundane, but so brilliant. The author used to drink tea loaded with sugar, but she needed to cut back for her health. She knew if she quit cold turkey, she would feel deprived, her brain would panic, and she'd relapse. So she started removing literally just a few granules of sugar from her spoon each day.
Just a few granules.
Yeah. It took almost a year, but the change was so imperceptibly tiny that she never felt a sense of loss. She successfully weaned herself off completely.
It is the ultimate metaphor for radical, painless transformation, and she proved this scales to monumental career achievements.
She used this exact principle to tackle systemic gender inequality at Ohio University in the 1970s. The sources detail how you don't change a massive institution overnight. So she committed to dropping one tiny sugar grain a day for women's equality.
Right, because a big leap would be too much.
Exactly. At first, it was just raising her hand to speak up in a single male-dominated class. The grains slowly accumulated. She eventually started a radio show. That visibility led to becoming the university president's assistant. And that ultimately snowballed into her leading the university's entire implementation of Title IX. She went from a grain of sugar to rewriting the institutional rules of a major university.
It's incredible.
But how does this apply to the listener today? The text tells the story of Susan. Susan is in her 50s, she's deeply unfulfilled, and she wants a totally new career. But she is paralyzed. She doesn't know where to start.
And the standard advice society gives Susan is terrible. People tell her to take a leap of faith, to quit your job and find your passion.
Why is that terrible advice?
Because it triggers the amygdala. Telling a 50-year-old with a mortgage to take a giant leap of faith feels like a threat to her survival. Her brain goes into lockdown and she does nothing.
That makes total sense.
Right. The advice Susan actually receives is to set a relentless cadence of tiny sugar grains. Week 1, she sends exactly 1 email to an old contact. She spends exactly 20 minutes walking to build physical stamina. She spends exactly 30 minutes updating her LinkedIn profile.
It's like slipping past a motion detector. If you run sprinting through the room, the alarms blare, the mental lockdown happens, and you fail. But the sugar grain is a movement so incredibly small, so slow, that your brain's defense systems don't even register it as a threat.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it also provides psychological safety. When you take a massive leap and fail, it is devastating. But if a single sugar grain fails, say that 1 email goes unanswered, it doesn't ruin your life. You just try a different grain tomorrow. It is the consistency, not the intensity, that breaks you out of the rut.
I mean, it's like compound interest for your life. You aren't trying to get rich overnight. You're just dropping a single penny in the bank every single day and letting time do the heavy lifting. We have covered incredible ground today. We've taken you from the stark realization that you are the CEO of Me Inc. through the intentional, friction-reducing curation of your personal brand.
Yep.
We've explored the evolutionary biology of the gremlin in your head, the chemistry of power poses and genuine praise, and how to use the sugar grain principle to bypass your brain's alarm system and make monumental shifts. Your career is not an escalator that you just passively ride to the top. It is an off-road vehicle, and you are behind the wheel.
It is a business that requires active daily management of both your internal psychology and your external environment.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to chew on. Earlier in the source material, there's a brief mention of keeping a Love Me file.
Ah, yes.
This is a brag file where you save nice emails, project wins, and achievements, so you have them ready to justify your worth during an annual performance review. But I challenge you to look at that file entirely differently tonight. Don't just use it as evidence to prove your value to a client or a boss. Use it to look for patterns in yourself.
What a brilliant reversal.
Right. Look at the emails in that folder. Analyze the exact moments you receive the highest praise. Use those clues to reverse engineer what puts you in a state of flow. What were the tasks that didn't feel like work but still earned you a standing ovation? What if your Love Me file isn't just a dusty record of your past? What if it's actually the secret, data-driven blueprint for the exact job description you should be targeting next?
That is precisely how a true CEO analyzes their most valuable assets.
Thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us. Your career is waiting. Go out there, assume the role of CEO, and drop your first sugar grain today.